Hi, hello. Welcome to Devon Monk's Works and Worlds. We are on Monday Monk, I don't know, 83. I don't think I've gotten the number right once in the last 3 months. We're somewhere in the 80s. We're heading toward 100. We're doing pretty good. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me here today. I really appreciate you. I know there's lots of places you can scroll to on YouTube, and I appreciate you stopping by here. So I'm going to cover what I usually cover, which is how is writing going, knitting going, and how are things in Monkland. Writing is going pretty good, thank you. I'm still revising Nursery Crimes, which is the book that I am releasing chapter by chapter on my Patreon. I'll put a link down below to my Patreon if you want to go over there and take a look at the tier levels. Even if you're not interested in getting fiction from me every week, my Patreon has really cool art for each of the tiers. There's a terrific artist named Savannah who made that art for me, and they are characters from my different books. So go take a look at the art. It's really cute. Okay, so that's what's going on. Oh, and by the way, the name of my Patreon is Devon Monk's Secret Cafe. I think I talked about this before because I always thought it would be fun to be a barista because I love coffee. They say, do a job that you love. So I always thought, yeah, I need to be a barista so I can drink all the coffee I want. But I think it's one of those things that some things that you love shouldn't be your job, right? That's one of the reasons why I don't sell my knit toys is I want my knit toys just to be for fun and to give away to people. I don't want them to ever be on a deadline or where I feel like I have created a subpar toy and somebody would be disappointed. So I want them just to be gifts and not to have money on the line, and so I can keep the expectation low. That's what I want to do. Keep the expectation basement level on the toys, which I guess segues right into knitting. How's knitting going? It is going well. I am still working on that creature. That is my project for this month's giveaway, October's giveaway. I need to get going faster on that because October is going by. How is it the middle of October? I mean, it literally feels like it's the first week of October, and it is not. It is not at all. So I am knitting that. I have a lot more to go on it. I hope I can get it done in time. We'll find out. And those are the first two subjects I usually cover. I'm just going to go right into Monkland. Monkland, things in Monkland. I made grape jelly this week. I think I talked about that before, that I was going to hopefully make grape jelly this week. I did. I had already previously made the juice for it, which is what I talked about last Monday. But I think that juice can only stay in the fridge for a few days. So by, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember which day, I realized I really had to get that juice made into jam before it was going to turn into wine jam. I don't know how long it takes freshly cooked and squeezed grapes to turn into some sort of fermentation, but I kept it in the fridge. I did this last year too. Kept it in the fridge for a couple of days, and I just, because of my schedule, the next day that I would have open would have been Friday or Saturday, and that would have been almost a full week of that juice in the fridge, and I just didn't want to risk it. So at night, in the evening after dinner, I just dug right in, and I think I put back 7 quarts of jam, but I put it back in half and quarter pint jars. So lots of jars, like 30 jars or something, several rotations of canning. I messed it up. Yes. Let's see, how did I mess it up? One batch, I didn't put the right amount of grape liquid in, and it came out very hard. So that is like over jelly. It's not gummy bear texture, but it is definitely a stiff jelly. Still tastes good, but much stiffer than it should have been. And then another batch, just part of when we were making the grape juice, we forgot to put some of the water. You're supposed to put like 2 cups of water in with 5 pounds of grapes. And we forgot to put the water in, I think, in one of the batches. So it's very powerful grape flavored, very concentrated grape flavored. That's why they tell you to put the water in, because otherwise, wow, that grape just smacks you in the kisser. And so I tried to remember to put some water into the jelly making process of it. I thought, if I missed it on the making juice process, I'll just add that water in the jelly making process. But I don't know that I remembered. So some of the jelly turned out powerful jelly. It still tastes like grape. Jelly is still very good, but it's going to be good to go on something like a biscuit or a sandwich or something, a cookie, because it's going to need, it doesn't need, but it'll be nice to have a little second flavor to sort of smooth out the grape, unless you like super powerful grape. But if so, then have I got the jelly for you? What else? I spilled it again. Last year, I tipped over one of the jars of a hot jelly and it went down in between my counter and my stove and smeared the side of both and stained the counter. I'm going to have to repaint that. But luckily, it's hidden by the stove, so I'll repaint it whenever I repaint the kitchen. So that was a mess. And this year, I again just knocked over, just like a cat, just was walking by and knocked over one of the jars of hot jelly and it just spread all across. But this year, see, I learned, good job, forehead. I learned from last year's mistakes and I put out a dishcloth and I did all of my jars on top of a dishcloth, which I think I did last year too. But this year I made sure that I was pouring the jelly and the open jars were on dishcloth. So when it spilled this time, it spilled all across the dishcloth, which is now a very sticky purple stained dishcloth, but at least it didn't go like all the way down my counters and down my stove or anything. So I am 2 for 2 on spilling hot jelly while making grape jelly. So I don't know if that's just how I work. Like after doing jelly for 3 or 4 hours, I get clumsy. I hit my head on a shelf while I was doing jelly. Like I have been in this kitchen for decades and suddenly I just turn around and hit my head on a shelf that I know is right there. So mistakes were made, people. Mistakes were made. But the jelly still tastes good. And it's just kind of one of those, it's maybe imperfect, but that doesn't mean it isn't good. Like perfection's great. I'm all for perfection. But having something be good still means you have something, right? And it's wonderful. So yeah, don't let perfection get in your way of making, really powerful or kind of gummy stiff jelly. It's still good. It's still edible. Still will be delicious. So yeah, grape jelly was made. What else did I do this week? Oh, we had an eclipse. We had a full solar eclipse. I mean, not just us. It wasn't just our special eclipse. Like the whole world got it. So, we all shared in the eclipse. And we were supposed to see it, I think, at 90 something % here in Oregon, here in my town in Oregon. If I had driven like, about an hour south, it would have been 100%. We would have seen the 100% ring of fire, whole bit, if it wasn't cloudy. And here in the valley, in the Willamette Valley, it was cloudy. And it was the kind of clouds that the sun, you can kind of see the sun through. It's like this, kind of like a lighthouse beam through the clouds. It's all gray. And there's just this sort of one lighter circle. And you're like, oh, that must be the sun. And so we really didn't see the eclipse. I did take a couple pictures of it on my phone, but it just looks like clouds over the sun. Like it looks no different. Gray sky, gray sun. Yeah, that's it. That's what we got for the eclipse. So not much of an eclipse viewing, but it was cool to know that it happened. And it did get a little darker when it was fully eclipsed, but it just was like more clouds over the sun. Seemed pretty normal. Like for us in my yard, the crows are still out yelling at each other and like nothing weird happened. That one time that we had the full eclipse, 100% solar eclipse in the morning in the summer, it was a bright, clear day, and the moon went in front of the sun, and the ring, it was silver. The sunlight, the sunbeams, we had to wear our, special glasses because you're not supposed to stare at the sun, obviously. But the ring around it was just like silver, glass-like color. Just, it's so amazing because I think of the sun as yellow and orange and all those kind of colors, but it was silver and so bright, like a star. Duh, the sun's a star, but you know what I mean. And it was awesome. Like that's one of the places where I'm using the word as in it filled me with awe. It was an amazing experience. And everything went dark and all the birds went silent and all the bees stopped flying and everything got very quiet and all the flowers closed up and everything. Like we have four clocks and they had been open and they closed up. And it was a really neat experience. So this time it was not quite that experience. It was just sort of like clouds going over the sun. And that happens so often here that it did not faze the birds, the bugs, or the flowers. They all were like, looks like Oregon. So no solar or lunar influence on our native flora or fauna here, although I understand just a little bit north of us in Vancouver, Washington, just right on the other side of the Oregon border, they actually got to see the eclipse. The clouds cleared enough for them, lucky ducks, but for us, not so much. So, yep, eclipse happened. It was pretty cool, but kind of like that. And other than that, what's been going on? Not a lot. I am still doing stuff to prepare for just the winter season, raking up pine needles and that kind of stuff to keep our sidewalks clear for people who use the sidewalk. And I have some more buttoning down to do for the outdoor areas in our garden and stuff. Still working on that. Hope to get that done soon. And yeah, otherwise just kind of cruising along here. So since that was, I don't know, relatively short, I thought I'd pull a little, I always shake this because I love the sound. I don't know why I like that sound. Do you have sounds that you like that are kind of odd sounds? I'll tell you one of mine. The sound of heels on a hard floor, echoey hallway, that click, 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 click. I love that sound. I think that's so cool. Okay, so this is a little wooden box. It has paper strips in it that have random subjects that I did when I first started this YouTube channel, like a year and a half ago. I'm gonna have to see. I think I started it in maybe February. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I have to go look. But anyways, when I first started it, I thought surely I'll run out of things to talk about, which, yeah, I don't know. I seem to still have something to talk about every time. But I thought just in case I run out of things to talk about, I will put things on strips of paper so that we can talk about them on the channel. So here we go. Allie Beckstrom. Allie Beckstrom. What is Allie Beckstrom? That is my first series that was bought by Penguin Random House back in the day. It is urban fantasy. It is a 9-book series. It starts with Magic to the Bone, which that title, I've said this before, my editor picked out. So anyways, so that kind of started the idea of how all of the titles were going to work for the entire series. Magic to the Bone is the first urban fantasy book I ever wrote. I wrote it in a ding-dang hurry because the note from my editor and agent got lost in the mail. I never received it, or in the email, I don't remember which. But basically, my agent had agreed that I would give a full version of this book, which I had only written 3 chapters and a synopsis to start shopping around to the different editors at the time. This is how you did it back then. And my agent got a bite from a couple of editors who were interested in seeing it right away, as in right away. They wanted it within like 3 weeks or something. And I hadn't even written the full book. So I wrote that entire book, I think, in 3 weeks. It was the fastest I think I've ever written anything that then went on to become picked up and published. It started as a short story, like most of my books do, but this short story was pitched to an anthology where they wanted magic and I think business to mix or something, and it didn't get picked up for that anthology. I've said this before, which is fine because I realized there was a lot more to it. The world building behind it was huge, and I thought it would fit nicely into a book or 2 or 3 or 9. So the Allie Beckstrom books got me started in novels, got me published in novels, and got me started in urban fantasy. The book that my agent picked me up with was the book before Allie Beckstrom, which is Nursery Crimes, which is what I'm now releasing on my Patreon, although I'm doing it, I'm revising it before I put it out. But Allie Beckstrom's still available. You can find it in ebooks, and I think it's around in print here and there. You can buy it online, get the mass market version. And yeah, so Allie Beckstrom's great. What's it about? It's about a woman who is a hound, which is someone who tracks illegal magic use and, makes sure that people don't do that. Everyone can use magic in this urban fantasy series. It is set in Portland, Oregon. There is a price for using magic, and that is pain. It hurts. Magic hurts, which limits how much you want to use magic and what you use magic for, right? Yes, except of course people are going to get around that and are going to find ways to make other people pay their price of pain to use magic, and then shenanigans happen, and there's some power-hungry people who want to take over the world, basically, and our heroine and all of her Scooby-Doo gang have to stop the bad guys. And I mean, I'm probably not pitching it very well because, frankly, I've never been great at pitching my stuff, but it's fun, it's funny, it's fast, it's a little dark. It's, it's when it was published, urban fantasy was really leaning on the snark. It has a light romantic sub-thread in that, she's looking for her someone, but it isn't a romantic urban fantasy. Like when urban fantasy first came out, it really was pulling more out of noir and hard-boiled mystery and those kinds of stories with that punchy, world-weary first-person, kind of detective point of view, monologuing or, to themselves. And urban fantasy has shifted a bit since then. It has definitely blended in many ways with more romantic subplots or very overtly romantic plots, which is fine. I don't have any problem with that. Now I'm just kind of rambling, but they're out of urban fantasy, I think, kind of evolved paranormal romance, which paranormal romance is a romance with something paranormal in it, whereas urban fantasy is a contemporary fantasy. It's fantasy set contemporarily, usually in a city with something paranormal in it, with, the fantasy is the paranormal. So that sounds super confusing. Let me try again. Urban fantasy is fantasy set in current day, usually in a city. It's kind of got that hard-boiled feeling. There's something that goes bump in the night in it. Monsters, magic, ghosts, something, paranormal is in urban fantasy. That's the fantasy part. Paranormal romance is a romance with paranormal aspects. So it's either a romance with werewolves or a romance with, ghosts or a romance with magic, or witches and that kind of stuff. But it is not necessarily always contemporary, though often it is set nowadays. And it isn't always set up with mysteries, whereas urban fantasy usually is. And I'm using these vague kind of usually always because writers, given a chance, they're going to go out there and smush up all of those genres and make them into whatever they want them to be, which is super fun. So yeah, so urban fantasy, the Ally Beckstrom books are more kind of, old school urban fantasy, where our main character is kind of our detective character. She's a hound, like I said, tracks down illegal magic users. So she's kind of our detective, and she's our hero who ends up in over her head trying to save the world. And and there's a gargoyle in the series who I love, named Stone the Gargoyle. And Stoney became a fan favorite, and he's one of my favorites too. And so that's the Ally Beckstrom books. Like I said, I think you can get them online. That's probably enough from me for this week. Next week looks busy. I hope to get a lot more writing in. I'd like to tie some things down so I could get moving on to some other projects. I will let you know if I get there. In the meantime, I hope you have an absolutely fabulous week. I hope you got to see the eclipse. If you didn't, or if you did, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience with it. And in the meantime, I will see you next week. Bye for now.